Mine's not staying green.
It's touching it too long.
There we go. Okay, we've got 5 o'clock, everybody. I'd like to say a short prayer, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, please watch over all of us in these uncertain times. All of the employees and our customers could use your help, and we'd also like you to guide us in making the right decisions for ourselves and our customers and the citizens of this community. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody on green?
Yes.
Yeah.
James?
Oh. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay, at this point, I think we're going to turn it over to the mayor to do the swearing in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for having me here this evening. Gentlemen, if you'll just stand in your positions where you're at, we'll go ahead and maintain our social distancing as outlined by the governor today. I'm going to read a few sentences. You can repeat after me. We'll get this in by first raising your right hand. And I'm going to say I, and then you're going to put your name after I. So I,
Bill Dees,
take the oath that I possess all the qualifications
take the oath that I possess all the qualifications
for the office to which I am chosen.
for the office to which I am chosen.
I am not subject to any of the disqualifications
I am not subject to any of the disqualifications
set forth in the charter
set forth in the charter
for the office or employment that I am about to assume.
for the office of employment that I am about to pursue.
That I will support the Constitution
That I will support the Constitution
and the charter and ordinances
and the charter and ordinances
of the city of Hannibal.
of the city of Hannibal.
And that I will faithfully discharge
And I will faithfully discharge
the duties of this office.
the duties of this office.
That in the appointment,
That in the appointment,
promotion, or discharge
promotion, or discharge
of officers or employees,
of officers or employees,
I will be influenced only
I will be influenced only
by the consideration of fitness,
by the consideration of fitness,
and that in such matters
and in such matters
I will act with impartiality
I will act with impartiality
and justice.
and justice.
Very good, gentlemen. Thank you. You go ahead and have a seat. I want to personally thank you, not just from myself at the mayor's office, but as a citizen and lifelong resident of this community, for taking on this responsibility. Much as other positions on boards and commissions, and even at council level, and even our elected officials in the state and federal government, it is a thankless venture. And oftentimes, no matter what decisions are made, there will be those that are aggrieved by such decisions. But as long as we all work as a team, and we work knowing that we're serving the citizens of this community and have a fiduciary duty to those citizens, we all will be successful. And I want to thank you and appreciate the work you're about to take on. If at any time there's anything that the city of Hannibal can do to help bridge communications, to make your jobs easier, by all means, let us know. I oftentimes talk about teamwork and ideas and philosophies that I have from the mayor's office, but it's just a philosophy. It's an idea. It's not the idea. I mean, obviously, there's more brilliant minds in this room here collectively than I could even begin to fill. So, again, I want to thank you, and I appreciate each and every one of you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Hart. Since I am the longest standing person here, I will move forward. We need to do an installation of officers. Do I hear a motion to nominate for President of the Board of Public Works for the term 2020 to 2021?
So moved.
I nominate Bill Fisher.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to nominate a vice president for the same term, and John Ortworth.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I will make another motion to nominate Mr. Bill Dees as secretary for the same term. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our officers for that term are now established. We will move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on our list is comments from the audience. We don't have any comments that we received via email through Courtney, and I don't have any sign-up sheet here, so was there anybody here attending that do have a comment? Okay, and we will move on to the regular reports and start with our new general manager, Ken Reesner, with the general manager's operations report.
Well, thank you. The board's already received the general managers and operations report in their board packet, and the first thing I would like to do is highlight a couple of things that's not really addressed in several different areas within the report. Over the next few weeks with the new board members and really going into a new fiscal year, we're going to be developing a calendar of events for the board. We'll be interacting with you to make sure that those events work well with your schedule. Since it is kind of starting to be budget season, we'll have to start having a board study session and review of the budget and get that approved, and then get it on file with the city clerk by May 15th. And then the one thing we may pursue, depending on the board sentiment, is possibly a joint study session with city council to look over the budget and make sure the 5-year plan is in coordination with each entity. So that would be something new, but just something to start thinking about. The fiscal year begins on July 1st, and then we'll have to go ahead and try to schedule a board orientation, maybe a session or two as well, depending on the board's needs or wants on those items. So development of calendar of events to kind of help you guys schedule and plan, accordingly over the next few months. One item that's not on there, but it's going to be kind of a task or an item is an extension policy, and then we're trying to develop a developer packet along with the city of Springfield. There's a lot of development going on in the city of Hannibal for the first time in a long time. So being able to provide the builders and developers with some information on how to do business with the city of Hannibal and with the Board of Public Works would be beneficial to several of the groups and stuff, just to give them a guidance and direction. And so we'll be putting that together. The other thing that would be appropriate to update the board on is the COVID-19 and how it's impacting our operations and how we're trying to deal with the customers and help them through these difficult times. A few months ago, current policies and operating procedures were adjusted. We're currently following the governor's orders and the mayor's recommendations, with current operations right now. Community and customer connections have been very, very important during this period of time. We've actually developed a new website where a lot of information is being posted out there with articles that's made available to our customers. It's actually on a special page. There's a short video explaining the changes to our customer service operations and how we can coordinate with our customers. And then one thing that everybody should be pretty proud of is the Smart Hub app. It'll allow you to view and pay your bill remotely, monitor daily usage, sign up for notifications, directly contact the staff with any questions you may have. And Matthew Jones was actually over the last few weeks able to get a residential customer sign up for services through the app and remotely. So even with some of the closure of the facilities, we're providing the community with a way to contact and do business with us. Hopefully over the next few months, we'll be able to do this for the commercial customers as well. With the facilities being closed, we still want to remind everybody that customer service representatives are still available by phone and email. They're operating from 7:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. We still have an emergency dispatch center that's in place 24/7. And then the late fees and disconnects have been suspended during this period of time. And then we wanted to let customers know that probably even when we resume normal course of business, we're going to allow them 30 days or so to make the adjustment financially to start operating with paying their bills. Internally, we're continuing to try to work and meet the social distancing requirements, working remotely where possible. Some shift changes have been made, limited access to control centers, and just kind of stressing good hygiene overall. We're increasing sanitation and disinfection of facilities. And the one thing that just came about the last day or two on PPE, we seem to be getting back in a good shape on masks. We received 750 disposable masks, and today we received another 500 N95 masks that's in stock. So we feel pretty good about that. We'll kind of be communicating and letting other agencies know this availability. We've requested additional masks that's cloth from FEMA. It'll be used for our folks, not really medical grade, but available for our folks to protect themselves. And then as we get through dealing with the pandemic, the phased in to reopen, we've been interacting with the community-wide COVID task force, and just thought the board would find it interesting that test, trace, and isolate, protect the vulnerable, ensure hospital readiness, adapt to physical distancing has been some of the message that they're going to start rolling out and communicating to the community. So hopefully we're getting to the next phase of this pandemic. And then kind of to wrap up that one, the federal and state policymakers have requested information on the financial impacts to utilities due to the pandemic, the economic impact on uncollectible accounts and bad debts. And so we're trying to provide them information back through surveys to let them know maybe what's the real impact to our system. The one thing that will make this difficult is utilities are usually a lagging indicator on the economic health. So any questions on the COVID situation or operations?
No, thank you for the update.
The other thing we were wanting to highlight is that we have installed a kiosk machine here at the service center. Hopefully it'll be operating by May 1st. It'll give customers 24-hour access to billing information and be able to pay. So that's going well. We do have one item with Two Rivers Industry Recycling, and we're going to ask James to provide us an update during his comments on the status of that issue. We actually collect a recycling fee that is a pass-through that goes back to Two Rivers Industries. One thing that's a real positive is that actually with the decline in load and the decline in interconnection congestion, we're actually seeing lower pricing in our purchase power. Prairie States was actually operating at 87% compared to 83% last year, and purchase power cost to them is down $2 a megawatt hour from $65.61 to $63.49. And the overall portfolio for this 12-month ended is actually down $2.10 from $61 to $59. So getting some access to lower cost power is actually starting to show up in some of the billings that we're receiving for power supply. On the public relations side of things, the hashtag Hannibal Proud campaign is going well. The sewer department was highlighted, and there's a video out there showing our crews utilizing some new technology to raise manholes to grade for smoother transitions. I really like that hashtag Hannibal Proud and community powered. So we're going to continue to monitor that, and that's just a good slogan for the whole community. We usually have an employee of the month, but with all the changes we've had to make due to COVID, the managers and everybody recommended that it's just the employee of the month is Team HBPW. So a lot of people are stepping up doing different things, and we're proud of the folks and how they responded. So we really don't have an employee of the month, but there's several people that we could recognize for doing an outstanding job. Under stormwater, and I'm just kind of hitting some highlights, so if you're having troubles following, just let me know. But under stormwater management, DNR did release their draft for the MS4 permitting, which will be a great assistance to us. That'll go in effect October 2021. Storm sewer repairs, we've actually been working with the city and developing a solution down behind the Mark Twain Hotel for the flood pumps. I really do want to recognize Matt Munslinger. He developed a fix for them and has been on top of it. Jared and his crews have been down there working with Andy and his folks, and it's really been a good team effort. We were able to find a spare influent pump from the wastewater treatment plant, and it's installed down there, and it should be able to keep up with the current forecast. And still trying to find a funding solution for those 3 pumps that are out of service currently. Within the electric department, reliability stayed over 99.9% with 9 outages. So the electric system continues to perform extremely well from a reliability standpoint. So there's just a lot of positive things going on there. The electric work associated with the McDonald's renovation project is wrapping up. The new underground primary and transformer have been installed and actually should be energized currently. Is that correct, Matt? I don't know if they got it energized or not, but they were supposed to have it energized by the end of this week. So we can check on that to see. But that project has actually come to fruition, and so McDonald's should be open hopefully sometime soon. Water distribution, 2 services were replaced, 11 services were repaired, and 2 services were installed. 5 hydrants were flushed. 147 locates. We actually saw a high volume in locate requests for the Hannibal community, even with the pandemic. And then the folks responded about 135 service calls. Sewer collection crews responded to 13 stop-up calls. 2 of them were on our side, 11 were on the customer side. One of the stop-ups resulted in a sanitary sewer overflow, and that was reported to DNR, and all the reporting is good on that front. You know, the other thing is that the crew were actually able to clean 12,300 feet and televise about another 7,600 feet for the month. So quite a bit of work going on the sewer side of things. And then we already talked about the manhole repairs and stuff that's going on, but they actually completed 10 manholes due to street paving projects for 2019, and no major issues were found with the assessments. The one thing we were wanting to point out is with the water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plants, and you're seeing this throughout the utility industry, the load forecast, capacity forecast are really being impacted by COVID-19. And so, you know, with the information we're accumulating during this period of time, it's probably going to help us to model and manage the system better down the road. But water production is actually down from 103 million gallons per day to 93 month over month. So the average day went from 3.3 to 3 million gallon day, with the max day falling all the way from 4.2 to 3.4. And we saw the same thing on the wastewater treatment plant. Sometimes this can be impacted by weather or rainfall, but really both periods of time are pretty consistent. So I think just overall demand on the system. But for the wastewater treatment plant, 195 MGD were produced or treated last year compared to 181 this year. Average day went from 6.3 down to 5.8, with the max day declining from 13 to 8.4 MGD. The one thing I want to point out is on the average day, I had actually put in 8.8 on the report, and it really should be about 5.8. I hit the 8 instead of the 5, so it's 5.8 underneath the average day for wastewater treatment. The last thing I really kind of want to update the board on is the AMI project has been put on hold. However, we did go ahead and install 2 data collection units this month, so we're prepared to resume the project once the COVID situation has passed. But having those data collection units at the Mounds Water Tower site, Indian Mounds Water Tower site, and Southside Water Tower site is going to pay dividends down the road. And the final thing I had is just to point out that the phone report, the CSRs responded to 3,200 calls this month and was able to resolve the situation under 2 minutes. And being here for a short period of time, I'm really kind of fortunate to sit close to the CSRs and listen to how they deal with customers, and they just do a great job. You know, they're friendly and helpful, and obviously you're receiving a lot of questions and concerns, and they're handling the public extremely well. So with that kind of wraps up the general manager's and operations report, and then Abe and Matt will be visiting more about projects and the financials during their segment. So be happy to answer any questions or or comments you have.
Anybody have any questions?
Ken, do you have a plan to, I just looked at the BPW website lately, and it's really well done, I think. And I don't know if you might have a section for contractors to get the forms and situations and processes that they need for things like, what do you have to have before you order service, or what are the forms you have to have before you start a subdivision, and where to look up the rules for different things like that?
You know, I hate to say, I don't know yet exactly what's on the website. I don't think there is. That's part of that packet and information. The city of Springfield's actually putting in a new permitting and tracking process on their end. We're going to try to reach out and, like I said, develop an extension policy with the builders and developers, and do anything that we can to make their interaction as easy as possible so they're prepared when they come in. We're going to kind of coordinate all the building activity together to make sure it's working out pretty well. So, but no website enhancements and.
There is standards and guidelines for water and sewer extensions and plans on the website through our water and sewer standards. Electric department's in the process of working that up, and hopefully we'll be able to roll that out here in the next couple of months. That'll be in coordination with the city, looking at some of their ordinance and guidelines relating to subdivisions.
You answered my question about the kiosk. I saw that up front just a few minutes ago, so that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And the lower pricing, we can all use that. Before I forget about it, Matt, you can help me with this. We've got a board seat on the development board. Has anybody talked with Ken about that yet?
We've talked about it.
Okay.
We'll bring it up.
It's just something I thought of when I was pulling in. Actually, I saw my old building sitting next door.
Yep.
So, okay. I think that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to, is Abe next? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Abe Gray. I'm the finance director for all of our new board members here. I'm in my 6th year here at the Board of Public Works, and glad to work for all of you and get to meet you. The financial packet you see here is kind of what I've done every month for a long time, but I tell every new board member I'm always more than happy to make any changes or anything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me anytime. If you want to see different information in the financial packet, please let me know. There's no law or gospel truth that says this is what has to be in here. It's just kind of what we found has worked in the past, but the future can definitely bring new things. With that said, so what you see here, of course, I have a little cover memo about 1 page and several pages of numbers. I try to take kind of a high-level look at this. I have hundreds of general ledger accounts and all kinds of stuff I can dig into if you guys have further granular questions, but I try to find, I've kind of seen that kind of keeping things at more of a high level and a bit simplified kind of helps us digest stuff. But stop me anytime. Like I said, after the meeting, if you see something, say, I wish I would ask him that, feel free to email me. Your iPad has my name in there. Abe. It's Abraham Gray, probably in the directory there. But numbers is kind of what I do. I don't have an exciting life. I garden and I do accounting. So this is I actually got outside. You see my little sunburn there. That's from got my garden fence energized to keep the deer out of the strawberry patch. But anyway, the first page of the financial report is the balance sheet. Cash decreased, like I've talked about now for almost a year, as we paid capital costs related to the water granular activated carbon project. There were no other major changes on the balance sheet. The next page is current month actual compared to budget. I hope you guys have that in your report. I tried to print to the work computer from my home today that report. It didn't get into my stack here, so hopefully that's in your packet. But March was an excellent month financially. Excuse me, with favorable variances in all funds net income, causing utility-wide net income to be more than double the amount budgeted, lower than budgeted purchase power costs that Ken alluded to earlier in the electric fund, and lower than budgeted operating expenses in all funds, more than offset lower operating revenues in the electric fund. So we definitely had a good month. The next page, I compare the current month actual to the same month a year ago. It's kind of the way I try to look at this is what we budget, actual versus budget, actual versus last year, trying to kind of triangulate how we're doing financially for the month and for the year to date, fiscal year to date. So lower operating revenues in the electric fund and higher interest costs in the water fund combined to cause utility-wide net income for March to be about 14% lower than the same month a year ago. The higher interest costs, of course, related to the bonds we took out a year ago for the water GAC project. The next page is current fiscal year-to-date actual compared to budget. Like Ken mentioned, the fiscal year starts on July 1st, so time flies, and we're now 9 months into the fiscal year. And so, 9 months in, utility-wide net income is about 33% more than budgeted. Lower than budgeted operating revenues in the electric fund are being more than offset by savings and purchase power in that fund. The water fund continues to reflect the favorable results of the 2 months of unbudgeted sales we had to Rawls County Water District Number 1, as well as the discounted early payoff of the escrow agreement with them. The sewer fund's results are being negatively affected by higher than budget operating and depreciation expense, more than offsetting higher than budget operating revenues. Of course, with net income 33% more than budgeted, all in all, it's a very solid year financially. It's also very much in line with our budget, with utility-wide operating revenues and expenses both within 1% of their budgeted amounts. Kind of looking at the whole picture there, revenues and expenses for all the funds combined. Both of those within 1%. I probably won't get that close again the rest of my time here, unfortunately. The next page there is current fiscal year-to-date actual compared to the same time period last year. Utility-wide net income is about 21% less than the same time period last year. Compared to this time last year, lower operating revenues in the electric fund and higher operating expenses in all funds are more than offsetting lower purchase power costs in the electric fund and higher operating revenues in the water fund. So we're ahead of budget, but we're a little bit below where we were last year. Other information I provide are the cash reserves and targets. We have a cash reserves policy that kind of spells out for each fund how much minimum and maximum cash we should keep on hand. By cash, of course, I mean deposits at F&M Bank as well as investments at Commerce Capital Markets. We also have our investment listing showing the maturities of everything we have investment-wise, the yield we get on those, where they're held. I also have what's called a Key Performance Indicator Dashboard. This was developed as a result of a board study session probably 3 years ago or so. Kind of some things that we try to, both financial and non-financial operating factors, we try to look at every month and see trends. I would want to point out in there, I would like to point out that the number of delinquent accounts really hasn't changed much compared to previous months, even reflecting the cessation of non-payment disconnections. It's a very positive thing so far. Like Ken mentioned, utilities are a lagging indicator, so we'll see how that plays out over time. But so far, people are able to make their willing and able to make their utility payments to us.
I was very pleased at that.
Yeah, both the dollars of delinquent amounts as well as the number of delinquent accounts has been pretty consistent compared to the same time a year ago. So we're watching that and tracking that, and hopefully that trend continues. I would not be surprised if it slipped a bit with unemployment and everything, but we'll keep an eye on that. That is the financial report. It's a lot of numbers. I tend to talk a little fast and mumble a little bit, but you guys have any questions at all at this time? Or like I said, feel free to email me. Happy to look into anything at any time.
Look forward to a budget session or two to get us up to speed.
Yeah, budgeting.
A
There's
little show and tell will help a lot.
Yeah, we're a $40-ish million a year utility with a $100 million balance sheet. And there's a lot of things with about 12 different operating departments. The budget pulls together a lot of information, and we'll definitely take some time to walk through that and make sure everybody's comfortable and understands where the money's coming from and where it's going, all that stuff.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Alan, I've got a quick question now that he's mentioning this. The city council, Ken mentioned having a joint session on the budget.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of these in the past during the daytime hours. How would that affect most of the city council?
As long as we have enough notice, I mean, we can figure it out. We have closed session things where we'll do it at 10 in the morning or something, and with certain people and things like that. So, I mean, as long as we can all come up with a day, I'm sure we can all figure that out.
Okay.
Could we do that in 2 days? In other words, 2, 1 hour sessions, instead, breaking it up a little bit.
Our session internally will probably be more like 3 or 4 hours, or
Okay.
2 to 4 hours internally, and maybe then the joint session we can maybe cover our stuff in an hour. I think might be reasonable.
I know people's eyes glaze over after about 40 minutes of
It's a
looking at
balance.
the numbers.
Yeah, we'll have to break for some jokes or something.
Mountain
But
Dew.
there's a lot with being our first budgeting session for much of the board. You know, there's want to make sure we take our time. You know, 2 hours might be sufficient. It just depends. It's there's no, some things will go quicker, some things will go slower. It's until we get into it, it's kind of hard to know precisely how long that's going to take.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up, Matt.
I'm Matt Munslinger, the utility engineer with the Board of Public Works. Been here about 12 years. I cover sewer, stormwater, and project management. What the report I'm going to give now is about the different engineering projects we have going on. It's just a snapshot of it. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop and ask, or shoot me an email, or call out here and talk to me. I'd be glad to talk to you about any of these projects. So.
Matt, I would like to take a second before you get started and just thank you for the overwhelming amount of work I'm sure it was to cover 3 different positions for as long as you've had to do so. So just thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Biggest project that we've got going on, it's kind of coming to an end, is the water treatment plant GAC project. It's something that started several years ago. In this past month, it's been pretty hectic trying to get everything to come together and get it online. But we did receive our 8 loads of GAC material that filled our 8 vessels. Toward the end of the month, we were doing a lot of testing, disrupting the lives of the operators up there as we're testing limits on our control system and making buzzers go off and starting the plant up and shutting it down. And so they had to do a lot of running around leading up to going live with this. This is something that we went live with on March 31st. And we've only had several minor calls concerning taste and odor of the water. We had to do some flushing associated with that. We were able to break a crew free and do some flushing at the extremities of the system to help pull the water with just the chlorine disinfectant out through the system and replace the chloramine water. Right now, the contractor is working to finish up the sodium hypochlorite system. It's something that was added as an addition to the project right from the beginning, but played no impact in the conversion. So they worked on getting the GEC stuff up and going, and now working to finalize that sodium hypochlorite system. They just as of today, we opened up the Park Road again. We had it shut for a couple weeks. Trying to get the driveway poured in there, and also the grading work done around that. So that is back open as of this morning. They still got some minor grading and some seeding and strawing to do there. And then we're just doing continual testing to see how this GAC product performs on the full scale, and report that back to the engineer. So hopefully we can get a better understanding of the life of the GAC material. We're looking about 8 to 9 months life on the material. So we're trying to stagger the start and then also monitor the performance of it so that we can better understand the lifespan of it, so we can assist Abe when we're doing the budget for GAC replacement in the future. Earlier this year, we awarded the tank rehabilitation projects to Hogan's Incorporated. It's for the rehab of the die maker's tank out here behind Spartan Light Metal Products. The tank has not been touched since it was constructed back in the mid-90s, and so it's due for a total rehab of the interior and exterior. But due to the COVID pandemic, we worked with the engineer and the contractor, and we've kind of postponed that till later in the summer, early fall. Because they're traveling from out of town, they didn't want to get up here and somebody get sick and not be able to complete the project in the time frame that we needed. So, downtown SSO Elimination project. That's a project we've been working on the sewer side for like 2010, 2011. There's a constructed discharge that's connected to this storm sewer down by the stormwater holding pond in periods of high river, and we can't get all the sewage out of downtown. We have to open that. And back in 2010 2010 or 2011, I can't remember which, got a letter from DNR that said that was no longer acceptable. And so we've been working to try to reduce the usage of that since that time. And so we're working with them to come up with a plan. They had originally gave us a 15-year plan to do away with it. But as we saw with the historic flooding of last year, having that relief valve there is a good way to protect property and control where that is being discharged in the downtown area. So we're working with our engineer and DNR to come up with a new plan that would allow us to keep it just for in states of emergency like we experienced last summer with the historic flooding. As part of that project, we're sealing up all the manholes outside of the flood wall between downtown and Wilson Street, or right there by the dog park on Ely Street. So that's a project we've been working on for a few years, and the wastewater plant's seeing the fruits of those labors. When we do have higher river levels, we're not getting the I&I that we had historically saw.
What percentage do you think that's at?
As far as
How many more we got left to go?
how many more manholes? Mm-hmm. Oh, we're done with the manholes.
We're done. Good.
We're done with
Okay.
sealing
I thought
those.
we had a few.
We redid all the chimneys on the ones in the off the paved surfaces, and then those were the first paved manholes that we did this spring. So all the manholes are fixed now. Now it's working on trying to identify buildings that would flood first, and maybe install some valving on their sewer side of things, so it's not a direct connection. Patchen Street area is a similar project. It's an I&I project. It's an area served by a lift station, and during periods of saturated ground and heavy rain, we get high levels in that lift station for several days. And so we're trying to pinpoint areas of that that section of town that we can rehabilitate and reduce those flows coming into that lift station. Some of the ideas include sealing off old services that are either no longer used, or even working with property owners to replace ones that we know are having a lot of I&I come in. We've got a lot of rock laid up manholes in that area, so looking at a way to either replace or rehabilitate those so that we're not getting groundwater coming through the walls of those rock manholes. So on the stormwater side of things, we're continuing to work with Black and Veatch towards putting something else on the ballot, whether at whatever time it may be, to fund the stormwater department. So we've had several meetings with them over the phone in the last month. Martin Street Storm Sewer Project. We had a failure over there a couple years ago. We've got it to the point we have the plans and specifications ready to go out to bid. We just don't have a funding source to pay roughly $300,000 for that repair. So that's where that stands. North Street Storm Sewer. That's a storm sewer right down by the Mark Twain Brewery that failed last May. We're working with the Corps of Engineers and FEMA to determine what part of the project they're going to do, what they're going to pay for, and so we've been having dialogue with both those agencies to try to get that hammered out, and then that way we can determine how we best move forward. We had an engineering report completed last fall that estimated roughly $5.5 million for the total replacement of that storm sewer from the levee all the way up to the old bridge approach. And depending upon how FEMA and the Corps of Engineers, how those monies and what their projects are, how they're defined, depends, what we ultimately can do moving forward. So just trying to get those things hammered out so that we can have a clear idea of how we move forward and ultimately get the project done. There is a temporary repair that was approved by this board in March. That is to go in and complete a repair where we put metal fabric down on the bottom of the storm sewer that failed, cover that with concrete so that we can hopefully keep the sidewalls and the floor together. That's where the failure occurred, was at the floor, allowing water to push out underneath and ultimately come up to the surface. We've got a contract with Heartland Restoration of Ellsbury, Missouri for roughly $52,000. But because of the river level, we can't get in there and do any of that. So the river is dropping right now, so we got our fingers crossed and ultimately have to determine, when the river does drop to an acceptable level, if it's something we want to continue to move forward with. So And then on the electric side of things, the engineer's working on designing different options to connect our Oakwood substation to our Southside substation. That's the one section of town we do not have a tie line between the substations. So right now we got basically a horseshoe. We can feed from the south side all the way around to Oakwood and vice versa. But ultimately having that tie line gives us better reliability and ability to transfer load to different portions of our substation electrical system. So that's all I've got, unless you all have any questions regarding projects.
Yeah. Anybody else?
No. Not right now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Yeah, I'm with you. There's a business park easement that Matt would like to share a few words with us on, and I think he's going to ask us for something as well.
As part of our business park out there, industrial site off of Highway MM, we've got a plan, kind of a conceptual plan. I don't know if you're all aware of it. Kind of lays out some of the lots and what's not to make the park acceptable for somebody looking for a place to locate a business. This is just a concept. We have not recorded any easements or anything of that nature. And so here, a couple months ago, I was contacted by the gas company wanting to run a gas main up this east side of the property to connect something they have along Highway MM to something they have along the outer road. And it would be in our benefit to have that gas available to whomever purchased property in the business park. And so I would need to bring it to you to seek approval to move forward to take this to the city council to get their approval ultimately. So,
Do I hear any motions on this?
Or James and Drew, one of the two, have reviewed the
I think it was me on this.
the easement agreement and were had no objections to the easement that Liberty had proposed. So,
Do I hear a motion to extend
Does
that?
does that
Go ahead.
have any impact on other utilities that might be planned for that park for the city use?
I mean, ultimately, if we had this thing platted, we'd allow access to whatever utility. We've got fiber and we've got water up the east side already. We've got our sewer kind of laid out in here. And so communication and the gas would be the only other two. And I would assume that we would be as agreeable to the communication companies as well, because we want them to have access to whatever. We've got, I know there's at least one or if not two fiber companies on the south side of the park and the same on the west. So. And I think there's even one that went across the north portion. So
Is that going through the middle of the city land, or is it like on the edge? Or?
this would be going up the east edge here.
Okay.
You'd be like
Gotcha.
feeding from the backside.
So I just asking for your approval, and then I'll take it to city council to seek their approval, and they would ultimately approve.
Motion to send it to
Signature.
city council?
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Matt. And yes, you're still up. It's kind of golf. You never want to hear those words.
In an effort to, continually improve our electrical system, we, if not more frequent, but annually look at our needs and age of our system and see where we can improve. One of those areas identified a couple years ago was the Any Mount substation, located out there behind Lowe's, behind Willow Care. And because of its age, its equipment is almost obsolete. We're having a hard time finding repair parts and such, and we're having a problem. I mean, if you built it today, it doesn't meet today's safety standards. It is our oldest substation, and so several years ago they started down a process of trying to acquire a parcel of ground from Lowe's to relocate the new substation. That way we can maintain the current one in operation while we construct the other one. And so here a few weeks ago, we got something worked out. And so something James has been working on with this as well. And so he's reviewed the documentation. All we're asking for is approval to go to city council to purchase a roughly 9/10 of an acre piece of property from Lowe's for the price of $40,000.
Motion to move it forward to the city council.
Here a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Question, the old site, when and if the Greenfield site is, operational, what do you do with the old one?
Right now, it houses some of our communication equipment, plus we have the water tower that's located on the same site. Because it is fenced, we could use it for maybe some storage or
So you maintain
some
it
other
somewhat.
opportunity. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Matt. Abe, I believe you're up.
At the risk of kind of wearing out my welcome, we talked about the budget earlier. I wanted to just one of the first major decisions the board would be asked to make is to understand and approve the new budget. I try to just kind of line out the time frame of the budget process. I'm honestly behind this year. You guys may or may not know I had some surgery that came up a few weeks ago, and I was laid out for a while. So we're a bit behind. I'm embarrassed to admit, but we're still on track to have it done and meet our city charter requirements and everything else. I included in your packet the budget for the fiscal year we're in right now. Just you can kind of see what the final product there has looked like in the past. Just kind of the layout of it, the scale and scope of the budget, things like that. There's no, of course, action item to take on the budget itself at this point. But like Ken mentioned, we would like the board to consider having a special meeting as a budget workshop. The budget, our final accepted budget, has to be on file with City Hall by May 15th. So we're hoping for something like early in the week of May 11th to meet and then air out any questions. And then if there's changes that the board would like to see, kind of approve the budget as modified at that meeting. That's really all I had to cover at this time. My memo there kind of lines out everything we do for the budget as far as where revenues come from, expenses, capital expenditures, debt service expenditures, all that stuff. Ken, do we want to ask them at this time to schedule the meeting? Is that this action item?
If you guys know your calendars or schedules, that'd be great. That'd probably help Courtney and I and Abe out to get it on your calendar. So we really want to turn back around and have a board study session. Like Abe said about May 11th, get it on file, look at the joint study session, see if we can do that, and then be ready to go, July 1st. The capital improvement plan still has to go through planning and zoning, so there's going to be a little bit of a coordination effort there as well. If you guys have an idea, that'd be great. If not, we'll try to get something scheduled as quickly as possible, tomorrow or the next day. So, but does May 11th, I think it's a Monday, is what we're shooting for.
It is, yeah.
So,
I'm good on it.
That's fine.
That's
I'm good as well.
okay, well, let's shoot for May 11th, and if we did it like 1 o'clock, does that sound acceptable to everybody?
Works for me.
Okay, so let's go May 11th, 1 o'clock for the board study session, where you guys will actually take a action to approve it, before we send it on over to
It'll
city
be
clerk.
a posted special board meeting and everything, and then
Right.
and we'll ask you to approve the budget at the end of that with any changes you need.
It seems like just one meeting with 3 people new to the board is not really going to allow us to understand very much of what's going on. Not that that's probably required at this point, because you've been doing this for 6 years, and
Yeah, Matt's been doing it he's been involved for 12, and of course Ken has 30-something years of budgeting experience.
right.
We'll definitely take our time and really try to make sure you guys are comfortable with the process and what the outcomes look like. It is asking a lot of a new board at 2 weeks in to approve a budget, but it kind of is what it is, so to speak.
I think we can get to the point where we got all the major capital projects outlined and defined for you, and then talk about rates and the overall financial solution and stuff. So, I think we can cover it all and give you a good education and awareness of how all that's established.
Do we do an overview of the 5-year plan? Is that budget fits into the 5-year plan, or is it just, here it is, it's 1 year out of the 5?
The budget will reflect year 1 of the 5-year plan as far as cash, but it'd be a great time to talk about the 5-year plan in general, or as a whole, for you guys to become familiarized with that, comfortable with that. Yeah, this budget reflects kind of a prioritized, pared down version of the first year of the 5-year plan. Not everything makes the cut when it comes down to where we end up, but yeah, capital budgeting definitely plays into the capital plan. Definitely plays into the operating budget, and we can discuss all that at the budget workshop.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abe. Comments from the attorney?
All right, as the board knows, well, as Bill knows,
He's got
I
to
never-
stand up.
I
He's
never,
got to stand up. But no.
I never comment, but Ken pointed out to me there was something I needed to comment on to you guys. The situation is the recycling ordinance was passed so that it would renew on I think it's a 3-year basis, but it might be 4. I don't remember. That's not relevant. What the issue is it's getting ready to expire. It needs to be voted on by the people every so often, and the problem is that the governor postponed the election. So the expiration occurs, therefore, before the election. The election's been pushed out to June. So at that point, we've got a couple of choices. We could take the position that because of the governor's order, that legally extends everything, and we will just continue on as we had been before. The problem with that is you perhaps encourage a challenge, and the other thing that would be very problematic is if it's not approved by a vote of the people, then you have an issue with it's more of a challenge. So after discussion between myself and Ken and also talking to the city manager, we feel like the probably the safer option might be better, which would be to terminate collection of that fee until such time as the people have had an opportunity to vote on it. So that, I believe, would be our recommendation as to what we think ought to be done. So, and the problem being that we'd like to stop that at the end of April, which is in just a few days, to make sure that we don't go past the deadline. So
we need to make a move on it tonight.
that would be, I think, what we would.
Well, and I don't know if it's even an action item for you because it's a ballot issue that became an ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were just wanting to make sure we were taking the appropriate steps to stop collecting the fees and transferring them on. So we're kind of the median to the transfer. So we just had to make sure it gets into the CIS system on the next billing cycle, and just wanted to make sure we were taking the appropriate action. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, James,
There
but I mean,
is probably no need for the board to vote on it. This would be a good opportunity if you all wanted to voice a concern or objection.
Right.
Now would probably be the time for you to tell staff that. I'm giving you the legal advice that I think while it probably would be permissible based on the fact that there is a governor's order that pushed that election back, I think probably the safest and arguably the most fair thing to the taxpayers would be to wait until they've had an opportunity to vote on the restoration of it. So,
I would tend to agree with that
Yeah,
thought process. And the rest
James,
of-
how long has the ordinance been in place?
well, this one, just one cycle, but the ordinance has been in place. This would be the 3rd cycle of the ordinance if it's approved by the voters.
Mm-hmm.
So, the original one goes way back. It'd be 6 years, so.
Any objections from any of you all?
No.
None?
Is the likelihood that it won't be voted back on high or low?
I have absolutely no idea. I've heard no buzz on the street. The ordinance is the same as it has been for obviously a long period of time now. I think by and large, the people seem to be generally satisfied with the concept of having recycling available. Certainly, the way the ordinance is drafted, it gives a preference to the contractor who actually handles the recycling gives a preference to people who have hiring opportunities for people with special needs. So that's another benefit to the community. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things in it, but as far as knowing, are the people going to continue to support it? I don't know at this point. It's a relatively low dollar amount for providing a program that's fairly popular and that does have some good benefit in that it gives some employment opportunities to special needs individuals.
Have they
So
stopped their operations?
they are not currently operating because of the shutdown order, which is another consideration that was taken as far as why we might want to go ahead and just stop because the program's not being provided at this point in time.
Doesn't make sense.
we just want to make sure you had all the information really on the current status of that.
I have no other comments.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, James. Any general discussion? I do have a couple things. One, again, that occurred to me the other night. When I became a board member, the board opened its doors to the water treatment plant, the sewer treatment plant, everything that they've got to the new members, and gave us tours. Very, very helpful for me. These guys may not want a tour, I don't know, but I thought that we might want to offer that to them.
Yes, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
I believe the last time we did it, George was actually in charge of the water treatment plant, so I think he gave me my tour of that. He's no longer with us, but
Okay.
you can get with your folks and then contact these three guys and figure out when they want to go.
Good idea.
We talked about the development board. I think that's it.
Closed session.
I think we're ready to move into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session, a motion to convene in closed session in accordance with section 610.021 of the Missouri Sunshine Law to convey in closed session to discuss litigation, real estate contracts, admitting Bill Fisher, Bill Dees, John Zerbonia, John Ortworth, James Lemon, Ken Reesner, Matt Mutzlinger, Abe Gray, and Courtney Harris.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take a short break and move into closed session.
Oh, thank you, Danny. I appreciate it.
In the past, we talked a little bit about.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. After we spoke, I had time to make a couple of quick phone calls and look at my old emails and figure